Welcome, students of MTGO Academy. This is your Pauper Professor Jason Moore, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest installment of. We are playing Affinity today. This is a staple of the format. This deck has been around for years and years, particularly in Pauper. It's had a long lifespan, and it's had a lot of updates. Well, I don't know about a lot of updates, but it's had a number of updates here and there, particularly with the Scars of Mirrodin block. So you went from just having the affinity creatures and affinity spells and the artifact lands that power those up to also having Metalcraft, which gives us Galvanic Blast, Carapace Forger. We also have Flayer Husk as an equipment from that block. Prophetic Prism came along the way. I believe Rise of the Eldrazi and reprinted in Gatecrash, and Ichor Wellspring also from that Scars of Mirrodin block. So Perilous Research came by way of Modern Masters. I think it got rarity shifted down to commons. But I shouldn't just blitz you with all these card choices. I should talk about the deck as a whole. The deck is entirely based around artifact synergies. It was made possible from the original Mirrodin block, and that gave us this entire mana base of artifact lands that we can play. Now, having artifact lands and cheap 1-mana color fixers like Chromatic Star and Springleaf Drum, as well as Terrarian, it boosts our artifact count very quickly in the early game and gives us a wide array of color choices that lets us do a bunch of cool things with our deck. So those things help us power out Frogmites, Mirror Enforcers, and Thought Casts early. And it lets us play Carapace Forger as a 4/4 creature on turn 2. So what this deck does, it basically accelerates and enhances the typical power level that you would see in a lot of spells. You would never see a draw 2 that only costs blue, but that's what Thoughtcast costs most of the time in this deck. And Carapace Forger is a 4/4 well over 90% of the time. Galvanic Blast is a 4 damage burn spell that we finish the opponents off with, or just use it as a great removal spell. Instant Speed Flame Slash sounds pretty sick, right? So we have this array of bolstered up creatures. 4/4s for very cheap. 3/2 flyer costs either blue or colorless blue. And 2/2 that can cost about 0. And then we use that to get even more card draw and velocity with Thoughtcast and Perilous Research. Perilous Research combines very well with Chromatic Star, because Chromatic Star cycles when it gets sacrificed. So does Terrarian, and so does any creature that's about to die to a removal spell. We can respond by drawing 2 cards and then sacking that creature that's already going to die anyway. So we see a lot of our deck. We play very fearsome threats, very formidable threats. And then on top of all of that, and we play, devastating burn, devastating removal. On top of all of that, we also have a Tog. So now we've amassed all the artifacts, all the lands we can muster, all the color fixers, and a Tog is just a creature that the opponent can never let get through for an attack step, because he's a double-digit attacker that will kill them in one hit. Now, if they do have blockers and the board is flooded up, then we'll just fling it at them. So that's sort of the plan B, is to combo kill them. And when you see these matches, it'll give you it'll give you a decent estimation, or a decent appraisal, a decent example of how often you can fling them out, how useful it is, and how much damage you can actually deal. So the deck has a lot of components, a lot of different facets to it, but it's basically broken down into color fixing, early artifacts, big cheap threats, cheap card draw, and then very cheap explosive burn. So you color fix, you play threats, you draw cards, you burn them out. Not necessarily in that order, but it can be in that order. Okay, let's just get through this, guys. So that's the main deck. You've probably seen Affinity before. I mean, who are we kidding here? I'm playing a bunch of random stuff. I'm playing Reaping the Graves in case we find any hardcore control decks that are going to remove a lot of our creatures. Any decks with edicts and Doomblade types things that kill all of our big guys. We want to be able to storm off at some point and get a bunch of creatures back to try and win the game. We have Journey to Nowheres. We want to kill Fangred Marauder if anyone's playing that. We want to kill Gurmag Angler. Anything that's bigger than our 4/4s needs to go. It needs to get the hell out of there. And guess what? If it's bigger than our 4/4s, it also does not die to Galvanic Blast. So that's why we're playing Journey. Also, the Exile portion of it, I think, is a little more valuable. Leave No Trace to fight against Hexproof. This is pretty good anti-Hexproof technology. Ancient Grudge for the mirror match. Hydroblast also for the mirror match, or Burn, or Goblins, or a number of other red decks are running around right now. Krark Clan Shaman for any swarming creature strategies. Also could work pretty well in against Hexproof if you find it at the right time. Pyroblast, Peregrine Drake combo, Delver, all the blue stuff out there. And then we have a Relic of Progenitus, I think also for Peregrine Drake combo, or just anybody who's trying to Tortured Existence or Exhume. You see a lot of that in two-man queues. Well, I don't know about a lot, but you see that more often in two-man queues, I would say, than you do in leagues and stuff. So I could be wrong about that, but that's just my gut instinct and based on recollection and experience. Anyway, I'm yapping. Let's just move along. Move right along to the battles, which I think you will get a kick out of. They're all fairly close. I don't remember any one of them being a steamroll, and I think the matches will speak very well to Affinity's position and place in the metagame, and really what it takes to try and beat some of these degenerate decks. It's kind of a grind, and you got to get really scrappy. So I want to thank you guys very much once again. And I hope you will enjoy the battles, which will be beginning right now.